Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hello, Rush Nation, and welcome along to the Week 1 Flagship Show. You'll be seen by looking at it, there's no big man Murph today. He is out having dinner with a family, so good luck to him. But here we are, Week 1 is done and almost in the books. A game to go, and what a week it was. Ties and overtime and drama galore everywhere. And to help me go through it, I'm delighted to say I've got Antonio here. Antonio, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks, Dan. Yeah, delighted to be here, talking about Week 1. What a week. Can't wait to get into it with you, because as you've already alluded to it, it's crazy, some of those matches, but we'll get stuck into that, I'm sure.
We will. Antonio, just for the people that don't know you, obviously I know you write for 5 Yard Dynasty. So tell me guys who you are, what you do, where they can find your sort of content, what you're working on right now, that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah, so I'm over on the Play Action Pass podcast that we've got going on. It's a bit of a home league that kicked off talking about it on a podcast. It's been running for about 2 years now. So I'm on there weekly, and then I write for 5 Yard Dynasty, as you say. I've got a couple of short videos coming out this year that's going to talk about, kind of dynasty stashes as the year goes on that channel. And I'll be talking about Week 1 starts and sits over on the Play Action Pass, and getting involved in stuff like this with 5 Yard Rush team, which are fantastic. So lots going
awesome. Me and Murph talk about the whole team that's behind the scenes at 5 Yard, and it's a phenomenal effort for all different shows and content they put out. And there's people that you don't come across on pods and stuff as often. And I know, say, I tried to do it in the off season, and Murph wants to do going through. We've got some very knowledgeable, experienced people working under the 5 Yard banner, if you will. So let's get their input into this.
Absolutely. So. And everyone's really friendly, approachable. You can call someone up and to join a pod like you have, and people will just join. So very good.
Awesome. And they can follow you. It's on there at Lights Out.
At Lights Out 7. I missed the at, sorry, on the screen, but at Lights Out 7 or FF_. Lights Out 7. Should have put that there.
Super.
But yeah.
No worries. So Week 1 is in the books. What did you make of it? What stood out as a highlight for you?
Well, I thought the early games, I was a bit not concerned, but I was expecting a slow start. You get to Week 1. We have had the Thursday night football game, which we probably won't cover too much, I guess. But, that was a good one, but it fizzled out, obviously, on a blowout. It did feel a little bit rusty, if I'm honest, the first quarter. And I was thinking, some of these quarterbacks, they need to step up their game. But like a switch flicked around quarter 2, I think, in most of the games. And it just took off. The second half of those early games were fantastic. And, the excitement and the buzz was back straight away. I was absolutely loving it. Couldn't take my eyes off it. Stayed up, until the end of the first games. And we'll talk about the kickers and all that, but they do have a say in real life scores.
Whether they should do or not, I guess, is a different matter. But I just think early weeks for me, I've known through the experience of watching and following it, defenses can hit the ground running a lot quicker than offenses. The nuances and intricacies involved with defense is nowhere near as involved as it is with an offense. And especially this kind of offseason where we've seen so many moves by high-profile skill players and coaching changes or coordinator changes. So early in the season, it's not always such a big surprise to see defenses come out on top.
Completely agree. Yeah. And I think that was the case maybe for the first quarter. I think there's a lot of quarterbacks probably had a little bit of pressure on them as well. And they settled down and all of a sudden we saw some good quality play or offensive play as well.
We did, yeah. I mean, any particular games stick out to you?
Yeah, so, I mean, in terms of obviously the highest scoring games, the Detroit-Philadelphia game was really enjoyable. And it did turn into a bit of a blowout towards quarter 3. But there was fancy scoring throughout. You look at the likes of everyone was looking at how Jalen Hurts is going to throw the ball in that game, and AJ Brown, talking about a debut on the outside, completely dominated the target share. Devon Smith catchless in that game. That was something I kind of was drawn to. And the Cincinnati Steelers game obviously got exciting towards the end, but the likes of Trubisky and Mariota, I think, the two quarterbacks I was looking at, because they've got the kind of rookies looking over their shoulder a little bit. So I was kind of thinking, okay, if one of them gets off to a really poor start, you could see Pickett or Ridder, not in that game, but very shortly. And I think they did well. Trubisky won the game, and Mariota was very close to winning the game. So I think, they looked okay enough to keep that role for a bit. So I don't think we're going to see the rookie quarterbacks for a while.
That's I want to go back to the Lions-Eagles game. Started out quite tentatively. Eagles got ahead by a fair margin. And I think it's something you're going to see throughout with this Lions side is they didn't give up and they didn't walk away and they kept going. And there is actually some fantasy relevant players within that roster.
Absolutely.
That stood up. I mean, they put 35 points on the board against what is a pretty respectable Eagles defense.
Very good defense, I would say, actually. I think the top 10 defense on paper anyway.
Yeah.
Eagles.
And many of the Lions fantasy side players were probably quite low in drafts because they're the Lions, because they're not winning games. And again, there's an element of the garbage time type racking up. But actually, they was in this game to a certain extent. And I don't think it's necessarily a fully one-sided element of that. Hawkinson and Shark all turned up. DeAndre Swift had a great game. There's some quality in there as well. Talking about quality, one game there wasn't a great deal of quality, I guess, was the Bears and Niners in Chicago.
Yeah.
Pretty rained off, waterlogged, flooded. Football's back, right? That's football.
Exactly.
Right,
absolutely. And to be fair, it's rare. Apart from maybe in Florida, you see the downpours at this time of year. At this early in the season, you don't see the poor weather games in America, until maybe we get into the back end of October. So seeing that kind of game early on was a bit of a surprise. And seeing, I quickly sat some of those players, the likes of Cole Kmet. If you've got those players who are fringe anyway, just make the decision. Don't think about it too much. Just make the decision. Ayuk was another one, but although he started off hot, I think he had one big catch early on. It looked like he was going to have a big game.
Yeah, 2 targets, 2 catches for 40 yards. So
it's always safe.
First 6 minutes.
It's always safer to start. It is safer to start other players on the brink. You're going to start Deebo Samuel, definitely. Those kind of players. But that's just a kind of a reminder that keep an eye on the weather forecast always. Make your decision wisely around those fringe players if the winds are high as well. But the quarterbacks in that game, and Lance has got a bit of stick on Twitter today, but Fields wasn't great at all in the first half. Yep. And really, it looked like a bit of a broken play that he scored that one touchdown. You take that away, and then it's a very average game to pour, if I'm honest. People are giving him a pass. People are giving Lance one more week, saying that Jimmy's around. It's going to be they've got Seattle coming up, so I think that's a bit of a bounce back game for Lance. I'm kind of hoping that it was a one-off. You've got to treat it like that, I think, in given those conditions.
I'm not going to panic on anybody that was involved within that game whatsoever. Lance's quality is Lance's quality. Yes, there are still question marks over his ability within the NFL, but you cannot judge it on that game. You cannot possibly take that game as an isolated start and say, is he going to struggle? It can't be factored in whatsoever. It's just a non-event in terms of where that is and what happens with it. And as you're right, don't overreact to anybody. I've seen a lot of people saying Cole Kmet only got 1 target. Yeah. He only threw 18 times, I think, or 14 times in the game, Justin Fields. So there wasn't a lot of targets going around to anybody. So I wouldn't overreact to anybody that played on those rosters. I'd wait for a week or two and see how it goes, because they will even out to where you anticipate it to be.
So the likes of Mooney, Kmet, I wouldn't drop them from your team. Absolutely, I agree with that. There's no rash dropping from that game. They'll bounce back, I'm sure. But yeah, Lance. Well, Elijah Mitchell went out in that game. I know we're going to talk about injuries later, but we'll leave that to the injury section.
Yeah, no worries. So Bengals, Steelers got 5 turnovers and still just about scraped over the line in overtime.
That's one of the craziest finishes I've seen. Just because teams who turn the ball over 5 times do not get that close to winning. historically.
No,
do you know what I mean?
You can't have that fewer possessions.
Absolutely. So the fact that, I don't know what Burrow was, some of those, there's a couple of tip throws in there, but he didn't look comfortable from the beginning, really. Higgins went out in quarter 2, I think. Didn't help, but something didn't look right with the line. 5 sacks, maybe. TJ Watt was everywhere. Obviously, that's another big injury, but he was everywhere in that backfield. And something didn't feel right with the Bengals. I don't know if it's a Super Bowl hangover. We saw it from the Rams on Thursday. I'm not sure, but Chase took a while to get into the game. When he did, obviously, he could have had 3 touchdowns in that game.
He should have won the game anyway because he had the catch on the line.
Exactly. Yeah.
Was over, and it's such a weird call from the coaches they rushed to the line and rushed to play. They're obviously confident about making it again, but
exactly. So they get there, they're first in inches on the 1 yard. Oh, well, we'll just run this in. All of a sudden, it's 4th and 1.
Yeah. And they've seen the replay 6 times by now and going,
yeah.
That's cost them the game. Even with 5 turnovers, they would still have won that game. That just says to me the Steelers aren't probably a very good side this year.
I agree with that completely.
Awesome.
And I think it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse with the injuries as well.
Yeah, probably will do. Dolphins, Patriots. Dolphins scored 20, gave up 7. Same as last year, right?
Yeah.
Anything different from them?
Well, I think I would like to see them play. I'm not going to say New England, Belichick or whatever. They do struggle. They do struggle down there. Again, historically, I don't think there's a very good team. I would like to see the Dolphins get challenged by a stronger team before I make a decision on them. Well, it's good to see Tyreek Hill commanding those targets, and Waddle stayed relevant. Gesicki, we think it was all by the book for Miami. We knew Chase would be the leader in touches from the backfield. We knew Hill would be the top commander of targets from the wide receiver, but it's also good to see Waddle getting his. So that feels like a consolidated.
Yeah, Mike Gesicki only had 1 target and 1 catch. So,
yeah.
But you pull Tyreek Hill into your offense, it's going to be limited. And then again, once they got ahead against the Patriots, there was an element of running the clock. It was hot. I think it was 110 degrees pitch side.
New England are not used to that. I can tell you, Miami might be, but
I went down there 4 or 5 days early, I think, to trying to acclimatise.
Right.
Miami pulled the old trick of going, we're going to wear white, so you've got to wear navy blue. Miami are also very clever because for afternoon games, their home sidelines in the shade and the visiting sides in the sun.
Yeah, I heard about that.
There's always a bit like, to some extent, the Bears-Niners game. There's an extreme of the weather, which does just ruin your plans a little bit. So I wouldn't read too much into that.
Well, are you going to feel comfortable starting Patriots players though? Because I'm not really. I
expected more.
Yeah. Even the backs. You look at the shared backs, and Montgomery got he was the pass catching role, and obviously down in the red zone when he actually rolled in for a touchdown. If they're sharing, if Harris and Stevenson are sharing, and then they don't get the catches, that's a stay away from me. All 3, not interested in those backs. So that was a big takeaway from that game, I think.
Yeah, and even the wide receivers, though, Devontae Parker, you'd expect against his old side. I think he had 2 catches. I don't know, something just wasn't quite right with the Patriots. For now, I'm going to mark it down to weather, game 1, off stride, and a pumped up Dolphins team at home. I'll wait and see. But yeah, I'm probably not looking to start Jacoby Myers, Devontae Parker, any of those anytime soon, and just seeing how it figures out in the next couple of weeks, really.
Yeah, agree.
Panthers Browns, another sort of mediocre game to an extent, apart from a game-winning field goal, which cost Baker his revenge.
I got a feeling Baker thought he won that game. When
you see his face after the kick, he wanted to win that game, right?
Yeah, but I think he thought he won it, in the plays before that. Obviously, when he rushed it in as well, and he found Robbie Anderson deep, which was a lovely, nice play. Nice to see Robbie back, catching those like the old days. But yeah, it felt like, Baker thought he got one on his old team. And then 58, 59 yarder. And to be honest, the kicker in Cleveland's always been a problem. So it is nice to see them kind of they drafted him in the 4th round, right? This Cade York.
Cade York, yeah.
So
he a long one as well that probably would have got about 70 if they'd have needed to.
the kick of trouble this weekend. It's nice to see the Browns having that, and Baker's face afterwards was a picture, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, DJ Moore, I'm interested on that game. DJ Moore really didn't. I think people got too much into this kind of QB upgrade around DJ Moore, and it's easy to say now, but really, how much of an upgrade was it from Sam Darnold to Baker? I don't know.
I think it is an upgrade. I think the problem is
it is, but how much?
Yeah, as much as they should have, and that's the issue with that. The thing that came out for me from the game was the limited usage of Christian McCaffrey, and he kind of had spells, but he wasn't a first or second read for Baker for most of the early part of that game, where normally he's the first read and give him the ball, and he's a playmaker, put the ball in his hands, and he'll win your games. And there's an element that you always give the ball to your best player, right? And I almost think Baker thinks he is the best player, rather than actually admit Christian McCaffrey is the best player.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah.
But I no worries with McCaffrey. I mean, if there is a buy low opportunity, then go ahead, start throwing out offers.
I think the fact he finished the game, started and finished the game,
positive.
See that ending. Yeah. He didn't have a wonderful day, but he probably in a PPR league, he probably put up 15, 16 points off the top of my head.
Yeah.
He's returned as much as a standard running back would have done late first round anyway. So he's still in the hunt with what we're saying is a downgraded game for him.
I think that's one of his poorest ones he'll play if he stays fit, of course.
Correct.
But Robbie is back as well, which is good to see. They needed another weapon as well on that team.
They did. Texans Colts finishing the tie, second game in the early window that went to overtime.
Surprising.
Surprise for many, probably, right?
Absolutely. This was a surprise. We all knew the Texans would be better because they couldn't be much worse, and also Mills did show enough last year at the back end, if you remember, to be a bit more comfortable in him. However, the Colts didn't really get a grip on the game like they do normally. They get a grip and then they run the ball. Taylor still had 30 carries, which was, that's a decent work day for a running back. It feels very consolidated again. Pittman looks an absolute stud on the outside in terms of Indianapolis. And I think, there's questions on the tight end. I think that's been put to bed in this game. I don't think you can start any of those tight ends with confidence. And Hines' role was strange, considering they were behind. I thought we'd see Hines a lot more. Or
Me
catching.
Too. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm not sure.
Especially with someone like Matt Ryan there who likes that little dump off pass.
So that's probably worrying because you're never going to start Hines if the Colts have got a good game flow or good game script. He's come from behind and they were down 20-3 or whatever, and they didn't feature him. So a bit of a worry on Hines there, I think. In terms of Houston, don't know where Damian Pierce went.
Rex Burkhead is the lead guy. They obviously like his versatility, his experience, and me and Murphy spoke about how we was quite surprised about the make decision because we thought the experience, if nothing else, in there would have just steadied the ship in moments when they needed them, in huddles and things like that. Would have just settled everyone down. But it appears Burkhead is the experience they like there.
It does. And if you're going to be able to start Pierce, is he just a hold now until he, is he just a roster clogger maybe in a redraft league? You're going to be waiting. But obviously, Burkhead could get injured. Great. Then you've got Pierce. But if they both stay fit, are you going to feel comfortable starting them? Not sure. You're going to have to see it first. It's one of those. So you could end up holding it for 6 or 7 weeks.
I'd sit here right now. Pierce is, for me, fits into the category of the other handcuffs, your Mattisons and people like that. I don't think they'll run with him. It's if you're churning your roster and you've got those bottom guys, and it depends how deep your leagues and your rosters are.
Absolutely.
For me, I'd probably want another week or two just to see excuse me, how it pans out in other games, and if he earns that role, if he can have a hot game, do they roll with the hot hand? But no, come week 3, week 4, if it's still kind of working off the same backfield split, then I might start to look into turn him to see if I can find somebody else that might become relevant soon. So
that's good.
Falcons falconed.
Yeah.
True Falcon fashion.
They do, yeah. It's a shame, isn't it, really? Because you know, it happens all the time. But it's there's positives there because the Saints defense, especially, they're a good team. I was expecting the Saints to kind of not blow them out, but
Yep.
beat them by a comfortable margin. So to have a 60-yarder at the end to maybe win it is a good place to be for the Falcons. I know it was home, but they were in control of the most of the first half, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Patterson looked great. The line was, they were running on the Saints. That was the biggest surprise in this game.
Well, yeah, Patterson. There was a lot of debate. Obviously, the back end of last season, they stepped down his usage drastically, and there was a lot of talk about how he's going to be used. He had 22 carries. He had a career high 22 carries for 120 yards on the score, and he still had 5 targets, 3 catches as well. So I think if you look at most of that offense, a lot of them under-delivered. Pitts under-delivered, I guess.
Well, I think London played well. I think
London did okay for his first game as a rookie and a tough side. But Pitts 7 targets, 2 catches for 19 yards. That's not first, second round tight end worthy return as of yet. So it remains to be seen if that can filter through. Other people, Olamide Zacchaeus and things like that, had bit parts to play. But yeah, I looked at the stat line and I was surprised that London had a decent, okay-ish game. Pitts had a dreadful game. I was like, where have they scored 26 points from and been in this game? And it almost seems like it was Patterson that took the brunt of that.
And you know, the players that are coming in instead of Patterson were Avery Williams and Damian Williams. These are not players that are going to take. You know, Algier was a late scratch, healthy scratch. That tells you all. I think Damian Williams even got injured. So you know, there's no danger if that's what they're rolling with to Patterson's role. So I might have been complete. Oh, that is somehow I was wrong on completely. I thought he was finished towards the end of the season. So I mean, if you're picking him up around 8 or 9 in redraft, that's a steal. That's looking like a steal.
It would have been. He's sitting at RB5 after 1 week, so
absolutely,
if you can maintain that, you got to laugh into the bank. So,
but on the London thing. So the Zacharias, Brian Edwards, Kadarius Hodge, they're not. It is really the London and Pitts. That'll turn into the London and Pitts show. I really think Pitts is a buy low now. You know, anyone's worrying. I don't know if they will be. Obviously, Dynasty is untouchable still. So this is mainly for redraft. Yeah. But it's going to be London and Pitts clearly as the 2 target leaders. And, you know, you want to go after that low game. And I think it's good news for London as well.
Yeah, I mean, they've got another tough game out next week as well, away at LA Rams. So not an ideal matchup for him. But his back-end season, it does get better. They've got Carolina, Chicago, Baltimore, Arizona, all in that sort of playoff spot there. So hopefully they'll find their rhythm time and they're a bit better by then. Maybe a quarterback change, but we'll see.
Well, yeah, we'll see. I think Mariota actually did all right. On the other side, there's a lot to talk about there because I think Jarvis Landry. So I picked him up I not picked him up, but I was drafting him at the back end of PPR leagues mainly. Yeah. And that's because, you know, there was a question mark on Michael Thomas's injury, whatever, but actually he showed quite a good connection in preseason. I know it's preseason with Jameis Winston, and that actually will go with vets. That actually goes quite a long way, I think. So I wasn't as surprised as others with that stat line, but that is a really good stat line from him in a game like that.
I had a lot of Jarvis Landry. I know him Winston from his time at the Bucs.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not going to dump down to Kamara, as we see. That was a concern coming out of that game for me, how little Kamara got of that ball. But Michael Thomas got his 2 touchdowns. Jarvis Landry, huge stat line. So, and they dug in the Saints. They was worried at the time, and they filtered it through. So, we'll quickly flick through. There's a few more to look at. Jets, Ravens. Not much of a surprise. I think the Ravens eventually wore the Jets down. And got that win there, 24-9. Anything stand out in that one?
Not really. I was keeping an eye on Breece Hall. Breece Hall versus Michael Carter.
Carter just edged it in usage, didn't he?
He did, yeah. Yeah, he had 10 carries. Breece had 6. The snaps were 50-38. So I mean, yeah.
Again, I think that feels.
No, it feels like you'll get by week 9 or 10. I think Hall will take over a little bit like Jonathan Taylor that first year. If Hall's that good, but you know, are you going to be able to start Hall until that point is the question. You should be able to because you drafted him round 4. So that, I mean, you're talking about Bruce, Damian Pierce earlier. He's round 6 or 7. It's a different conversation with Hall. So owners might be edgy on that one. And on the other side, well, Bateman's targets were not as much as I thought it would be. If I'm honest, I wouldn't be panicking on Bateman at all. But I expected him and Andrews a little bit like London and Pitts that we just talked about, and then everyone else. But actually, it was more even for the Ravens, which was surprising.
Yeah, and there's so many though as we talk about these anomalies in week 1. I mean, Sammy Watkins, I think only plays week 1 in fantasy football for the last 3-4 years now. So he didn't turn up this year.
Yeah.
The cream will always rise to the top, I guess, is the thing here. So it's don't overreact. You guys you've drafted earlier studs, and they've been studs for the last 2-3 years, and they will work their way through, and the quality will show.
Mark Andrews, for example, no panic there whatsoever. If anyone is panicking,
is he going to be a tight end 1 that you may have drafted him at? Maybe not. Is he going to end up tight end 3-4 at worst case scenario? Yeah. So I wouldn't frown it at all. Commanders, Jags, weird one. Lots of reasonable fantasy play. A young rookie with 2 touchdowns in Dotson. Terry McLaurin got a decent touchdown catch after not really being targeted all game as well.
Yeah. I do. I like these. This is kind of an interesting game. And we'll talk about this when we get to the waiver wire, I think, because the teams that have got clear wide receiver 3s and nothing else, there's value there. We just talked about one with Landry, although that's a little bit different. Here, you're looking at Kirk, Jones for the Jags, and Dotson, McLaurin, and Curtis Samuel, and there's nothing else behind them. So that is, for me, they're the kind of waiver wire pickups you want to be looking at, but we'll get to all that. There's definitely fancy relevant players on these teams. It was good to see Gibson take his...
He did do well.
He did well, and he caught the ball well as well.
Yeah.
A few people were saying, actually, when Robertson comes back, Gibson would take the McKissick role, but McKissick kept his role in this game. I was watching closely to see if they just threw the kind of workload all to Gibson's way. So
I guess Gibson's always playing for his career now, right? There's talk about coming back week 5, week 6, potentially, which seems ludicrous. If he delivers that kind of return each week, then he'll keep rolling in that job. So,
and James Robinson was a lovely surprise, I think, and it's not to the ETN owners, but in general, it was nice to see him back. Dominated the carries. He got 12 carries compared to ETN's 4, and he got catches, obviously. But it was an even split. So, as suspected, ETN will play a role in the passing game, but probably not as much as everyone thought on the ground. Yeah,
ETN had a couple of rather straightforward drops as well from what I saw, which was
absolutely crucial.
I'm going to put down to rookie nerves. Well, I say rookie, he's not a rookie, but effectively, I guess he is for all intents and purposes. So,
one of them was overthrow from Lawrence as well. He had him perfectly in the end zone. Lawrence missed him. I don't know with Lawrence. If you take your mind back to this time last year, he was the golden boy. He hasn't. I might have expected him a little bit too much from him. I don't know, but he needs to start showing something soon, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to again go. It was week 1, adrenaline's high. You're eager to do well, and overthrows, I guess, one of them things that until you settle and find a rhythm a bit more, it's a bit easier to do. So, Justin Jefferson, many people's wide receiver 1, showed exactly why that's the case in the Vikings 23 win, 7 win over the Packers.
Superstar. Nothing else to say, really.
Yeah, Vikings are Vikings. Packers surprised you?
Yeah, they did because, and I guess if we will never know what happens if Christian Watson catches that ball in the first, because it's 7-7 then if he catches that deep one, and it might be a different game. They control all of a sudden. Then you see the running game. Aaron Jones gets a lot more run, all this good stuff. But I just expected Rodgers to find a way, and I'm so used to seeing him find a way in games like this. It's rare that you actually see, 21-0, 27-3, 27-10, or whatever it was, and not much that you don't believe they're going to get back because they haven't got that many playmakers anymore. That's the truth. You're looking at Randall Cobb and Sammy Watkins. They're not going to do it anymore.
It never felt like they was in the game.
No, and that's rare.
Very early on either side of the ball. For me, so you're looking for that one player to to spark a light to ignite everybody else, and it just wasn't there. And then you look at your senior players to sit on the sideline and go, right, let's get up for this, and there was none of that either. They just kind of all sat around on the sideline, and
yeah,
I mean, there is a couple of guys on the offensive line, which I don't think would have helped. Bakhtiari and I can't think.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's concerning.
Fancy wise, AJ Dillon, it's nice to see Tunyon out there. I think so. That is someone that Rodgers trusts, but he's not going to break anything big anytime soon.
Many people's biggest surprise: the New York Giants came out winners, 21-20, and Saquon Barkley. Many people doubted. I don't think nobody's ever doubted the talent. Many people have doubted his injury proneness, but he does look like the Barkley of 3 years ago.
He does through the.
Boy, I hope he can stay like it.
He looked really good through the line. I don't know. There was one play the old Saquon Barkley would have taken to the house. I think. I just feel like down the sideline he was gone. So I'm not sure about his top end speed, but through the line he looked explosive. That kind of burst through there. He definitely had that back, and it was nice to see Jones dumping off a few balls to him as well. There was one screen which was really nice design. Really good game. Enjoyed it. I think Tennessee. It felt like Tennessee took the foot off the gas completely, and they could have wiped the floor with them in the first half.
Yep.
Really, sat in for field goals. 3rd and 1, they were doing kind of tight end reverses instead of giving it to Daryl Henry and then punting it. They could have been out of sight early, I think, and that's just the Tennessee way. They are conservative for some reason. Obviously, Tannehill. Well, I don't know. There's a few players there from the receiving core. I don't think you can trust any of them right now. But Tannehill did kind of keep them going with a chance to win the game. They just didn't come through. It's funny, the coach for the Giants had a go at Daniel Jones, didn't he, towards the end? He might have said something to him and turned him the right way. Yeah, it was good to see.
The Giants get me because
they went for 2.
How reliant, independent they were. They did, yeah. And they said all along they're going to play that way. So fair play to them for doing it. But there's so many guys. We've sat in the offseason going, well, Kenny Golladay he hasn't shown it for a while, but he is a talent. And it has to show sooner rather than later. His time's running out. This has got to be the year. And then you look at Kadarius Toney. Flashed last year, odd bits of, not even a whole game, just odd bits and plays here and there. And he's like, okay, maybe he's bedded in, he's got over his injury, and he can build. Then they brought in Wan'Dale Robinson. Now, Wan'Dale Robinson got injured early on in the game, but none of these guys...
We didn't see Toney. I was expecting to see Toney after that. Okay, you don't start him, fine. He's doing something in the background. He's obviously not I don't want to speak out of turn here, but he's doing something that's upsetting the coaches behind. Because talent-wise, every time he touches the ball, he's got a first down.
He was on the field for 7 snaps.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
In the whole game.
So Wan'Dale goes off injured, and I'm thinking, right, fine. You've had all that stuff with Toney. Let's see him now. And he just didn't come in. So there's bigger issues there. You can't start him. It's unfortunate because, like I said, every time he touches it, it looks like it's a first down. They can't tackle him. No. So...
And Daniel Bellinger, the young rookie they like, but he went out with concussion as well, and it fell on the likes of Sterling Shepard to deliver us. As always, it seems crazy coming back off his own injury as well.
It does, yeah.
Chargers Raiders, decent game. Chargers prevailed, 24-19, but Devontae Adams picking up, I think it was a 48% target share in this game.
Ridiculously high.
Yeah, lots of. He's moved and he's going to have to share it with Waller and Renfro and Jacobs at the backfield now, whereas in Green Bay it was the him and Rodgers show. Doesn't seem to come to fruition at all. It is, like we said with Christian McCaffrey earlier, I guess, the line is getting the ball in the hands of your best player. Devontae Adams is without doubt their best player, and they try to get the ball in his hands as often as they physically possibly could. And he delivered on it.
Yeah, the connection's real there, and... his right running looks it's just as crisp as ever. So if he's that open, Carr's going to find him. Renfro still got his targets, but they didn't come during. If I remember, they came really late in that game. So
they did. Same with Wallace. They were back end of the game as well, generally speaking. So
that's a little bit of a worry to me. On games they might be up and not throwing as much as they want. They're out of sight by then. Jacobs, I did see Brandon Baldwin was in the game a lot more than I thought it was. So there's been talk all offseason about Jacobs. I think the worries are real, although he did dominate carries. The only thing is they were from behind, so Baldwin was on the field and Abdullah was on the field. Worried about Jacobs, I think.
And of course, obviously, the Chargers receiver we all went and drafted and wanted and knew was going to be a star there was DeAndre Carter.
Not Josh Palmer, not Jalen
Not Josh Palmer, not Mike Williams. It was DeAndre Carter.
DeAndre
Washington last year.
And now Keenan Allen, again, get to that in a minute, but Josh Palmer felt like the kind of player you would draft at the end. I know I did in a few redraft leagues. Yeah. And if one of those players goes down, he's an automatic start.
I really expected a lot for Josh Palmer when Mike Williams wasn't re-signed. As soon as Mike Williams signed, I dropped Josh Palmer personally because I think that role would have suited him perfectly. I don't know. Maybe it was just a matchup thing yesterday. None of the Chargers receivers, the headliners, kind of excelled a lot at that stage. So,
we'll see.
Keenan Allen going down injured as well.
Yeah, well, it's a Thursday night game, isn't it, with Keenan Allen? So, not expecting to see him out there. I don't think so. I
wouldn't imagine so. No.
Josh Palmer's probably one you can start. I'm probably not sure about DeAndre Carter yet.
The other side, that like the Packers, I guess, that had their receiving core blown up and no one knew quite what it was going to be, was the Kansas City Chiefs. And they didn't hit the same problems that the Green Bay Packers hit, did they? They was out the gate early and often.
It feels like Mahomes might have been listening to everyone saying, "Oh, the Chiefs maybe not going to get out of that division this year," and he just said, "Right, screw this. I'm just going to, show everyone." And he was dotting it around. He was back to his normal way, running one way, throwing back across his body. He looked really comfortable, and I knew this was going to be a blowout. I do follow the Cards a little bit. I do support them essentially, and the amount of injuries coming into this game, there was no kind of doubt in my mind that the Chiefs would win this one. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire got his as well. 2 catches, was it? Or maybe one was the first one was a run. I can't remember. Pacheco got in the end zone. Juju got his. Kelsey got his. It just feels like the Chiefs were buzzing. And having Hardman as well.
Yeah, it was spread around. It really
was. They could literally go to anyone they wanted to, and Mahomes got gobbled up all the points.
And the difference is that Aaron Rodgers looked like he couldn't go to anybody. Mahomes looked like he could have threw the ball to any of them. They all stood up and delivered. So, Edwards-Helaire did surprise me. Did get 2 touchdowns. They were both receiving touchdowns.
Oh, okay, good.
Only had 7 carries. It is the Chiefs at the end of the day. Read into that what you will. 7 carries, 42 yards. He had 3 targets, 3 receptions for 32 and 2 scores in there. So a decent return on him at the minute, and see if it carries on. And that brings us to the last game, and probably the least exciting game of the weekend. I don't know if you'd have seen it.
Yeah, I have. I agree with you. It was not a good watch at all.
Well, it was as a Tampa fan. It was an ideal watch. It was perfectly simple because there's a lot of concerns. But the Buccaneers prevailed against the Cowboys 19-3. Buccaneers defense, Cowboys offense just looked a real mismatch in quality at the time. I mean, the Cowboys scored 3 on the first drive. The Cowboys never got inside the 30 yards again until the end of the third quarter.
It looked comfortable the whole way. It looked comfortable, and I think the Buccaneers were in second or third gear in offense.
We scored 3 field goals. We had a missed field goal. We could have put that game to bed before half time comfortably, and we didn't. And Tampa need to work on that and execute a bit better. But the Cowboys had nothing.
No, nothing. And it's only getting worse with that. But what do you think about Julio Jones? And I ask you as a Bucs fan, what do you think of... I was encouraged to see Julio out there in 3 receiver sets, not Russell Gage.
Yeah, well, Russell Gage had a bit of a niggle as well. So, obviously they've lost Godwin as well now, so for a little bit maybe with his hamstring. So, we're waiting to see. My biggest surprise was how they used Julio, because they had him running end arofts on jet sweeps twice.
Like the old days, proper old
days. I've seen something today that he was clocked as the fourth fastest player on a field over the weekend.
I mean,
the Julio of old.
We forget how good he was. I don't forget. He was one of my favorite players.
Yeah,
8-9 years ago, whatever. But he if he's back to anywhere close to that, then that is the best receiving core in the league, without a doubt. If he's back, he's the key to that. If he's back, and they're putting 3 of those players out there: Evans, Godwin, when he's back, 100%, and Julio Jones. It's game over, in my opinion. Brady can go whichever way he wants to go, and they're all superstars.
Yeah, and Leonard Fournette had a really big game as well.
That's another thing. Yeah, Fournette is going to play. He is very close. I mean, if we could redraft again, he would be the back end of round 1 because he is a true.
Me and Murph have both said I think Murph had him as RB5 on the year, and I had him at around about 8.
Good, because I drafted him in round 2 in my main, home league, and I'm chuffed to bits to have him in round 2 as my, first running back.
Yeah, he's going to deliver. He had a huge workload. It wasn't even a share. Rashad White did come into the game. He did have 6 carries, but 5 of those were in the fourth quarter when it was 19-3, and then sat out. So he looked okay, but he isn't taking that role off Leonard Fournette anytime soon. That's for sure.
Pure handcuff, which is valuable, by the way, because Lenny obviously. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to see Rashad White coming in as the first option there for those who drafted him as a handcuff.
We kind of touched on them as we've gone through them, but looking ahead now to week 2, maybe not your waiver wires right now, but those players where you were like, do I start them, do I bench them, do I sit them? Who for you now has gone, yeah, you've earned a place in my side now. You're going to start.
Yeah, so I think James Robinson gets that tick. I
don't think it's a shared backfield still.
He's
going to be the lead.
Yeah, and I think he's got the carries 10-7 or 10-3, whatever I said. Again, that was in a game they were down again and they were still running him. I think, not saying the Jags are going to be up. I'm not sure who they play next week, but anyway, going forward, he is someone that I'm quite happy to put as even as my RB2 now. So if you did the 0 RB strategy or hero and you picked up some of the back, put him in.
Jags play the Colts next week.
Yeah, so they are good against the run. But I don't know. That's a tricky one, actually.
It depends on the competition is, I guess.
It is, yeah. But I was encouraged by James Robinson. There's a few other names at running back. You put one so Khalil Herbert. You think?
Yeah.
Would you start him, or?
I've got a lot of Khalil Herbert in Dynasty. I think it's his job in due course. In redraft, I have a lot of David Montgomery because I was quite heavy on a hero running back second. Montgomery comes my RB3 somewhere, and I'm sitting here similar to what Singletary. I had the two of them very similar in terms of it's their backfield. They will control it. The other guys will get sprinklings here and there, but it's going to be their main lead.
Yeah.
That happened with Singletary. I don't feel that happened with Montgomery. I think Herbert's pulled along a side, and if not ahead in a couple of weeks. So I think at the minute it may be touchdown dependent, but then he did get the goal line work. So maybe that's going to come in.
Yeah.
Maybe not an RB2, but if you've got a flex play and one of your flexes is Brandon Ayuk this weekend in Chicago and it's pouring down with rain, I wouldn't be adverse to putting Khalil Herbert
in the same game. Wouldn't. Yeah. And that's where, the weather comes into effect. You go in the running back, maybe. That's a good shout. Yeah.
Devin Duvernay had a big game.
Yeah, I'm less interested in him as a pick up and play option. I think I do like to think about the kind of team. Baltimore usually, if they're ahead, will run the ball. I know it was close in this game. Maybe that signals why he caught it a lot more. But I do expect it to go to the Bateman and Andrew show again, a little bit like the London and Pitts that we talked about, and just funnel those two. So it could be just background noise for all those kind of players. James Prochet, second tight end, Isaiah Likely, all these others might.
Isaiah Likely, 4 targets, no catches.
No catches, yeah. But yeah, I know. Waiver wire, darling. Another name, Daryl Henderson. I think you can play him. Obviously, we've seen enough from the Thursday night game. So those who had Akers and Henderson as the cuff, I think it's just a straightforward swap. You've got one in round 5 and one in round 9. Mm-hmm. If you were to redraft now, you would take Henderson around 5 and Akers around 9, probably as the handcuff.
Potentially, yeah.
So
Robbie Anderson, big game. We said the Panthers are looking for a wide receiver 2 there. I mean, Robbie Anderson's currently 16% owned.
So that is a
deeper redraft.
Yeah, that is a player that I think you can play. He got enough targets. He was on the field the whole time.
Yep.
So, Chenault,
Terrence Marshall is not going to be a thing.
Then Shai Smith is the third. And their tight ends are, again, not commanding any targets soon. So it is those two on the outside, and they're on the field a lot. McCaffrey should kick in, give the offense a bit more of a kick as well. So, yeah, Anderson's one that you can probably start and flex.
I was amazed. I mean, we talked to the players. James Robinson, 72% owned. Khalil Herbert, 47. Duvernay at 20. And I was surprised Robbie Anderson still came in at 16. He's the lowest of all of these names.
I agree.
And he's, even before the season, he's a wide receiver 2 on his roster. And I get CMC's there. He pushes a lot of the work on the ball. DJ Moore's a fantastic talent, but there's lesser wide receiver 3s being drafted ahead of Robbie Anderson.
Absolutely, mate. Get him in your team.
So they're the kind of players that we look at if you've got flex spots available and options that we think maybe their performance week 1 may not be a myth. It may have something to carry over into week 2. They are not the next Sammy Watkins. If you've got these guys and the matchup's nice and the weather's good, then these are guys that we think their production will probably carry over. Duvernay out of those would probably be the one we'd keep an eye on more. So, what are the players that you probably started heading into week 1 where you're now going, what am I going to do with these guys? Are they going to back out?
Oh, well, Cam Akers is one, definitely. But I think we've, being a Thursday night game, there's been a lot of talk about him. So I don't think you can play him as simple as this until you see some sort of remnants of what he used to be pre-injury. And
I think it will come back. I do.
Yeah.
He had a soft tissue injury in pre-season. I think that's a lot of it to factor in. So I think it will come back around.
You can't start him until you see something. It's impossible now. CeeDee Lamb is one we should talk about because I mean he got drafted as an auto start. You drafted him in round 2. Okay, fine. He's a wide receiver. He's going straight in your starting lineup. Yep. But actually now, without Dak for 8 weeks, maybe 7 or 8 weeks.
Yep.
But even with Dak, he was the number 1. And we haven't seen it yet from CeeDee Lamb. We haven't actually seen him step up to be the wide receiver 1. So we were drafting him in round 2 for potential to be the next cut. Yeah.
There was no Gallup for early weeks. There was no
Amari
Cooper.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I think it was a case of, CD must get these opportunities. It didn't quite pan out. I actually think CD will benefit from someone like Michael Gallup's return. I think having a second option there is actually when CeeDee Lamb will get freed up a bit more in coverage, and that's when I think he can get the ball in his hand in a bit of open field and he can break a tackle. I think it's yards after catch with CeeDee Lamb, whereas when he's your main target, your main option, he's double covered and defenses clamp down on that, and therefore he can't have that explosiveness. So, you mentioned a bit earlier, New England running backs, probably looking to sit at the minute.
So, Ramondre Stevenson, not too sure if you can start him with any confidence right now because of the situation with Ty Montgomery and splitting carries with Damien Harris. If anyone did start him, then he's back to your bench, I think, with a solid 3.5 points.
Yep.
What else did I say? Oh, yeah, we've talked about Kadarius Toney, but Robert Woods is worth a mention because people were drafting him as a safe player, ironically, and he got 2 targets, 1 catch in a game. I think it will, but
he's one I'm probably not starting now, but he's one I'm definitely keeping and not turning the roster over on.
Yeah. I think he's in this. He's not droppable, but he's not. I don't know if I could start him because the worry for me is Tannehill. They're not a throw heavy team, are they?
No.
So Burks is going to kick into gear at some point, and then when they do, is it enough volume to go around for 2 players? But we'll see. Woods is one that I'm probably going to stay away from until I see something again.
Yeah, Woods for me falls into the don't panic bracket right now. Don't do nothing daft, don't do nothing stupid. if it all clicks later on down the line, he could be somebody that does give you a safe floor in weeks that you need it in a flex spot, in a wide receiver free spot. So just let that offense find its feet. They was in a game against the Giants yesterday that they probably didn't expect to be in. And I think the game plan probably went out the window a little bit there. So you do lots of articles and writing and bits and pieces. Yeah. So give us your advice. You're in a redraft league now, heading into week 2. Where are your waiver wire additions? Who are you looking to go and add to your rosters?
Okay, so I would be looking at the running backs from the injured. You're looking at the normal. So we're going to talk. I don't know if we discussed the injuries, but Elijah Mitchell went down. Yep. Yeah, so you're looking at those kind of running backs first. But they're 2 or 3 wide receivers I really like because of the usage that they're shown in week 1. Zay Jones is one of them. So he should be on most people's waiver wire.
12% owned on Sleeper.
Yeah, I love the way that, there's 3 wide receivers there. Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, and Christian Kirk. And again, Marvin Jones might fall into this, but Zay Jones looked like a favorite for Trevor Lawrence. So I got no issues in any PPR league or even half PPR putting a nice waiver bid in for him.
Curtis Samuel Jones in best ball.
Yeah, perfect.
Mainly because he comes from the college that I support in East Carolina, and he's one of the other players in the NFL. So it's kind of following his career. So I keep picking up Zay Jones just in the hope on that one.
In the hope. Yeah. Curtis Samuel falls into that bracket as well. Very similar bracket because there's 3 wide receivers there with Dotson and Terry McLaurin. I think he's someone you can pick up and start in your flex immediately. And it looked really good. Wentz looked like he was comfortable. 12% owned, yeah. So
Curtis Samuel a couple of years ago, was looking like he could make that what became the Debo role. Curtis Samuel had the potential to do that kind of gadget type play, and it didn't quite come out for him at Carolina, and he got traded, and then he got injured, and he hasn't made the field since. But I'd say yesterday we saw Curtis Samuel that we saw back in Carolina, and he looked good.
Really good.
And I hope he continues for his sake. But yeah, Curtis Samuel as well, sat at 12% owned in redraft leagues. Player with some steady upside there. And he only wants to Washington to lose McLaurin or something like that, and he's got a huge upside for you then.
Yeah, and I did put Jarvis Landry on this because I don't know how maybe this is a start from your bench. I don't know how many people actually had him and started him. He's a typical player you start and you just put him on your bench because he's drafted in round 12.
I had lots of leagues with Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas in. I didn't start either of them
on the bench.
I just did not know what that Saints side was going to look like. Even though they're a decent matchup, AJ Terrell's decent corner. I didn't know who was going to pick up that coverage. I just wanted to see what the Saints look like. And this week, I'll be slotting them in where I can into flexes, both of them, without too much concern. Olave, I'm still going to sit and wait on him redraft. But no, if you're looking for a friendly matchup, I wouldn't have a problem starting Landry or Thomas this week based on the performance in week 1. They have got Tampa. Tampa secondary is probably their downside. Jameis Winston's going to want to throw the ball.
It looked pretty good.
They did. Yeah, they did.
Yeah, but like you said, Cowboys looked off.
But we only had CD Lamb to cover. Dalton Schultz. There wasn't a lot else out there, was there? So that secondary with Olave, Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Alvin Kamara coming out of the backfield is a different proposition.
Yeah.
So I'll be intrigued to see how that goes.
Yeah, I like that. And I did mention Kenny Gainwell. I think he was a sneaky winner from this week because they did use a lot of running backs. We know that, but he was the clear number 2 last year. Actually, Gainwell only came in, and actually, if you remember, Gainwell was dropped in a lot of leagues around weeks 7, 8, 9 because he wasn't getting used at all. That was the most usage he's had in any game so far.
And it's weird because even their the Eagles put out their squad depth, and it had RB1 Sanders, RB2, and it had Boston Scott / Kenneth Gainwell. They hadn't even declared who was their RB2 themselves.
Yeah.
But they have now on the field.
Exactly. So he's one I'm keeping an eye on. And if I need a flex starter, I'm okay with that.
Awesome. So we've touched on a few of the guys already that we're going to talk about now, the injuries, where it felt like preseason we kind of did okay. We didn't lose anyone major to anything major.
I know.
Here comes week 1, and what do you know? Contact ups a little bit. And having said that, I don't think a lot of these are going to be major long-term injuries. Dak Prescott hurt his thumb. He's gone for immediate surgery. He's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Whether or not Cooper Rush becomes a thing for 6 weeks, if you've got Dak, I'd go and get him just to have him there. But the way their offense was, and with Cooper Rush coming in there, I think you need to find another option than picking up Cooper Rush somewhere.
Agree. Not much to say about that. We've talked about CeeDee Lamb. We're not sure how he's going to be now with Cooper Rush.
No.
So a bit of less confidence in all of the Cowboys, I would say.
Same game, Chris Godwin went down injured. My heart fluttered because he's only just back off an ACL. And we was all the Bucs fans I was talking to staying up were going, he'll suit up. He'll probably play about 10 or 12 snaps, sort of run snaps, just to get a bit of blocking and just to find his feet. Third play out the gate, they threw him a screen and let him run into the open field with people chasing him. We were like, no. But
and actually, the play he got injured was a great catch, really.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Low down the poor throw. But it isn't his ACL again. It is a hamstring injury. It's been declared as. He's gone for scans. It looks like it's going to be 2-3 weeks for Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
So I expect to see Julio get more usage like he did. And hopefully if Russell Gage can keep getting fitter because he's had niggle as well, he might become viable as a flex play as well in future weeks. It's going to be a pass-heavy offense. So Keenan Allen, you mentioned, another hamstring injury. Still waiting on the results of this. I'd expect it to be at least 2-3 weeks. Chargers suit up Thursday night football. So I think if you've got Keenan Allen, it's going to be incredibly unlikely that you're going to be able to utilise him at this stage.
Agreed. Which is
Josh Palmer, you recommended as a
replacement. Yeah, I did. I don't think you should be put off by Palmer or DeAndre Carter, if you like. I think Palmer will settle down as that number 2 now in Keenan's absence. So I think you could play him. And Gerald Everett's probably a big winner, actually, from that injury. I was pleased with Gerald Everett. I've been banging the Gerald Everett drum all off season. Well, 2 people have banged the drum. Gerald Everett, DJ Shark, both did okay. Both got 50, 60 yards. Both got a score. I'll take that for week 1. Yeah.
For my deep pick. So, T. Higgins went out of the game with a concussion. He's obviously got to clear the concussion protocol before he can retake the field. Yeah. Don't see, unless it's a severe one, there'll be too many issues with him. I'd expect to see him back on the field come next week unless there's a hang-up somewhere. I would start Boyd if he doesn't play. Yep. In any format. And even when he went out, it looked like Hayden Hurst become a bit of an option late in the game. Yeah, so he's not going to be an option really if there's 4 of them. But if one of them's out, he's one of those players. If there's an injury ahead of those, then he's a streamer now. Yeah. But Chase won't. Sorry, I was going to say Chase won't be affected by that. You saw what happened. You know, he can. They move him around enough to get out of that double coverage. So don't be too worried about Chase. They do on the kickers. It was a weekend for kickers, missed field goals and doinks and everything everywhere. Harrison Butker on second kick after their first touchdown turned his ankle. It looked like he could have broken it in real time as he done it. It went over that far. We then saw Justin Reed, the safety, kicking was it a field goal or an extra point he kicked? He then took a kick off and put it clean through the uprights as well. But he missed one from 20 yards. He then missed a chip shot, and without much surprise, Harrison Butker was in, strapped up, God knows what injections in it, with a 54-yard field goal. And because he didn't want to have the run and plant onto his left-standing foot, he took one step. He took one step and he nailed a 54-yard field goal. I don't know if you guys have got kickers in your league. Butker would have been probably quite a highly drafted kicker quite early on. I'd have thought for his consistency. I would say wait and see. They did use him whilst injured. I don't think there's much other options there. So I think if the Chiefs don't go out and pick up a kicker, you're probably going to be safe to play Butker in this instance. So. Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Next injury on the list I've got is Mac Jones. It was listed as a back injury. I've put it down as embarrassment. more. That he didn't want to meet the media and things like that. He's had 2 scans now, one in Miami and one back in New England, and both have returned negative, no damage, no issues.
Shock.
So the Patriots have come out and said they'll see how he feels during the week. My guess is going to be absolutely fine, and there won't be no issues whatsoever.
Yep.
On now, Robinson, we mentioned the injury for the Giants went out. It's just a shame because I was looking forward to see how they used him. Knee injury, I haven't got any more details than that, so keep your eyes out, I guess. Read up on that one.
Yeah.
TJ Watt.
I would just say Shepard might become in the flex option. So if Tony doesn't step up and Wandale disappears
I'd say
for a long
flex
time.
and Sterling Shepard.
In a PPR league, I would say only. But, I mean, someone's got to catch the ball in New York. I know what you're going to say. But, yeah.
Someone's got to throw the ball first. Accurately. To have someone catch it. That's the problem in New York.
Yeah.
TJ Watt for the IDP guys out there. Pectoral strain, they reckon, or tear. Could be as much as 8 to 10 weeks for TJ Watt.
That's a big one.
It's going to be huge for them. As we said, Steelers aren't very good anyway, so let them get fit for next year. Najee Harris, high ankle sprain confirmed, 2 to 3 weeks for Najee Harris out, which is big. Had a lot of usage last year, carried it on this year.
Yeah, he
Benny Snell, let's go.
Is it Benny Snell or is it Jalen Warren? I think there's been a lot of. I think he was first in, so he's. I mean, going back to your waiver wire ads, Jalen Warren is one that I'd be looking to add immediately, because. Well, I say that Pittsburgh line looks terrible, and Najee Harris got his score through the air, which Trubisky might not look for Warren in that respect. So he's still an ad. If he's out for 2 to 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever, you need the next man up in Pittsburgh because they don't do a running back by committee. Do they? They put one guy in and he's the guy whoever it is historically. So if it's Warren now, get the right one and.
Either of those backs for me are going to be those spots at the bottom of the roster, the 2-3 that you turn, the guys that are dead weight you don't mind dropping each week. Go get them, stick them in. They're not going to be playable. They're not going to be viable this week. But they only need to have a game and a half of decent production. Then you might be looking at the flex play. It only needs Najee Harris to have a complication on his return to training. Yeah. Actually, he misses 6 to 8 weeks, not 2 or 3. And you've got this guy in advance. Even if you look to then use that guy somewhere else with someone else to trade for something else. Try and get these guys on your rosters early. I will say don't overreact. We see after week 1 so many times people go out and blow their far bidding now on Jalen Warren because he has to be the next guy. He hasn't done it in the NFL yet. He hasn't shown that he can be that lead back. For me, I'd be cautious. I'd be wary. I can get him if you could get him for a fair price. But I'm not looking to blow everything on someone like Jalen Warren, who in 2 to 3 weeks' time, you probably look to drop anyway. Najee Harris come back up, pick the roll up, and you'll be on to the next guy. So, I wouldn't be out there doing that. Other running backs was Elijah Mitchell, knee injury.
Yeah.
I haven't got a time scale on it. Don't know how bad it is, but they took him rather abruptly.
They did. They ruled him out straight away. And I think that might be to do with the weather as well, because to put someone on the field on that kind of field. So they were like, right, I'm in this game. They obviously thought they had enough in Jeff Wilson and Jordan Mason, is it? Because I think Ty Davis-Price was actually inactive. So it looks like Wilson is the pickup.
Yep.
Jordan Mason might be a deeper pickup, and if Ty Davis-Price comes into the picture here as well, so they'll have all 3 active next week. I can imagine.
If only they'd have kept Trey Sermon on the roster,
or JaMychal Hasty, put them all in there.
Hasty,
like the old, get them
or
all
Raheem Mostert.
But it's just next man up in San Francisco, and Debo ran the ball a lot. Let's remember.
Well, I think he had 9 attempts following the injury to Mitchell, so
that's not going to go away as well. So
for Debo owners, I think that's. In fact, I'd say actually the Mitchell injury is better for Debo than any other actual running backs
probably
that are on that roster.
Yeah, Debo gets more touches. Shame he's not paid like a running back.
Indeed. Anything else you want to cover? Anything else relevant to either week 1 gone or week 2 ahead?
Well, I think we covered loads, to be honest. It was a really good chat. I think you're going to talk about it now, but there are things that you just don't want to panic too much about it. Week 1. You talked about the weather a little bit affecting games. Don't forget, that all changes next week. They'll have a clean slate. I would look into the kind of usage a little bit of wide receivers, like I talked about, in the likes of Zay Jones and Curtis Samuel. That's really good kind of data. They're on the field a lot. Robbie Anderson, very, very promising. Those kind of stats. But apart from that, nothing crazy happened. I think I talked right at the beginning about the quarterbacks. It's quite good to see those that were 50-50, the likes of Trubisky and Mariota play well. So, and they're good. They're good rushing quarterbacks as well, those two. So if you need a streamer, have a look at some of those rushing quarterbacks in a one quarterback league.
That's what I would say. Hold their own. So, and that's my bit of advice from this is don't panic or overreact. Any given week there can be an anomaly. It's week 1, so we're all hyped. We've all studied everything. We've all watched every game highlight we can possibly cram in. By week 12, we're not doing that. We're just watching a couple that interest us, right? So, don't overreact. Don't overdo it. Look at your waivers. Look, as Antonio says, look for those guys that were on the field a lot and commanded targets. Anybody can have. I think Duvernay had very few snaps, 2 targets, and a couple of scores. I'd be looking for the guys that actually got 7-8 targets and 3 catches because they were looking his way. They was on there. He had 60% of the snaps. Go find those kind of guys that are out there. Don't blow your money on them. Keep the roster turning around. Keep trying to find the next guy. Look ahead to week 2 and who's going to be relevant. So me and Murph always speak about is trying to stay a step ahead with your roster.
Yeah.
I
would say I would just have one thing. Don't panic on the studs as well, because I talked about Pitts being a buy low, but that goes obviously if you've got Pitts, then don't panic. Basically,
no one's selling Pitts. No one's selling Pitts even in redraft.
Well, you never know because you look at someone like Goddard, Hawkinson, in that level, they could easily think right. Someone's drafted Pitts round 3, Goddard round 6, and Hawkinson round 7. What's really now if those climb up 2 rounds and Pitts maybe drops down 2 rounds, then they're obviously looking at the same level. If you could turn one of those into Pitts by adding something, then maybe that's a move to do. But don't panic. Studs, you shouldn't really panic on the studs. Even Austin Eckler, who didn't have a great game, he's pick number 4 or 5 in a redraft. He's still got 11 points in PPR in a down game.
And he's got the Chiefs Thursday night, so I'd expect him to put up a decent return on that.
Exactly.
As well. Yeah. So cool. Antonio, thanks again for joining us. Keep your eyes out for Antonio's gear and his work that he does. He's got his pod. What was it called again, Antonio?
Play Action Pass. And 5 Yard Dynasty. You'll find me over there with some videos hopefully shortly.
Fantastic. Guys, that's it for week 1. Hopefully we'll be back with the big man himself for week 2 show. But as Murphy would always say, for now, keep rushing.